What's going on, everybody? It's Bogo Sports here, and I'm back with another video. It's been a little bit since I uploaded the AFC Season Preview, but I'm coming to you today with the NFC Season Preview, where I had a guest last time, Drew Nelson, and that was great. I think just timing wise, I want to get this out, make sure I get it. So we're not going to have a guest on this one, but things haven't changed too much in the way I'm going to present this. We didn't talk about every team last time, but since I'm here by myself, I'm going to just run through the teams. But some of them I'll just say a sentence or so, kind of where I think they're going to be this year. I'm not going to give my official predictions. I am going to make an actual official predictions video on Wednesday of this week, the night before the season starts. My comments on teams in the AFC haven't changed too much. I do think I didn't talk enough about the Steelers, and I didn't really talk enough about the Jags, but you'll see that in my official prediction. But overall, most of my opinions in there, they still stand. But I'll talk about my division predictions, my team record predictions. I'll go through everything because I actually went out and did that this weekend. So I'll do that on that video. I'm not going to get into records, but you'll get a good idea of what I think of teams as I go through this list. So without further ado, let's just get into it. We got a lot to talk about here. So we'll start with the Cardinals. If you guys don't already know, I'm an Arizona sports fan, so this is my team, and I probably wouldn't talk about them if I wasn't a Cardinals fan. But just to be brief, I mean, this team, it's one of the worst rosters I've seen in a long time. Obviously, Kyler Murray's hurt, and that is one of the main reasons why their win total for this year is like their over unders like 4.5, which I think is potentially even high. We cut Colt McCoy. I used to be a huge Kyler Murray fan, and you could probably see old videos on here where I was defending him to the end of the earth. But I really got pushed off of him from the two off seasons ago when he just did that whole fiasco with the contract, and once that really kind of jaded me a little bit towards him, I started to realize like, whoa, I have been overlooking a lot of things that this guy does wrong, and particularly, I mean, the biggest thing I don't like about Kyler Murray is that he is just I honestly look at him as a cancer in the organization. And given that the Cardinals are the most poverty franchise in the history of the NFL, I think I don't think Kyler's a bum. I think he has a lot of flaws as a quarterback, and I don't think he'll ever be a championship winning quarterback, especially because of his size, and he just hasn't improved season over season much. But clearly he has talent. I mean, the guy won Heisman. He makes great plays. He can run fast, throw far. But, he has his flaws, but overall, he's not a bum. He is a good quarterback, probably top, you know, edge of top 15, and in the right situation can get close to top 10. But he's not the guy that's going to change the fortunes of this franchise. I mean, he's just not a leader. He doesn't seem to work crazy hard in the offseason. He's not a good communicator. It's time to move on. We gave him a horrible contract. My hope is that he doesn't even play this year so that some team doesn't see him perform badly with such a bad roster. It's more likely that he will perform bad if he plays than somehow carry this team to a couple of unexpected victories. But my hope is that he doesn't ruin his stock this season. The team doesn't ruin his stock. You can add that in as well. And that we trade him to some desperate team like the Falcons. See, if he was on the Falcons, I think that's actually a good fit. Do I think they're going to win the Super Bowl? No, but I love the weapons they have there, and he's going to be better than Ritter, and we'll get into that. But overall, this team is just destined to be horrendous this season. And I got into that whole Kyler spiel because I think this is the season. We need a tank for Caleb Williams. I am sold on that guy, and I'm going to be watching him all year at USC, as I do think he is the future quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals. But I think the goal should just be lose as many games as possible. This roster has just been gutted. We have like three really good players, or not even really good, but three solid. I love Buda Baker. I think Zaven Collins could be decent, but I don't love the position change for him. Marquise Brown's okay, but I'm not a huge fan of him. And James Conner's solid, and Kyler's solid when he plays. So, that's really it for this team. So it's going to be a long season as a Cardinals fan, but it allows me to root for other teams in the NFL and kind of pick a team and say, hey, okay, I want these guys to do well this year. I mean, I'm more of a fan of football in general than just a fan of a singular team. But when it's like this, it sucks because you really don't have anything to look forward to in the season. We don't even have any young players that I'm excited for. Like when Kyler got drafted, I knew we were going to be bad, but I was at least excited. Okay, I want this guy to succeed. I want him to show improvement. I want him to make great plays and prove that he's a good player. We don't even really have that this year. We drafted an offensive lineman who I do like. On paper, he could be a guy, piece for us in the future. But last thing on the Cardinals is that Jonathan Gannon. I was I was really disappointed when we got him. I mean, the reports were coming out that no coach wanted to come here because of Kyler Murray. Now, how true is that? I don't know. But at the very least, this roster is pathetic, and the franchise has never been great. And Gannon really was like a last resort option. Eagles fans, I mean, I know you can't take everything they say at face value, but they wanted him gone last year, even with that team. And he was supposedly, I was not happy when he was signed. And then I heard, okay, he's a good communicator and culture guy. Okay, I'll give him a chance. And I'm still giving him a chance. But what we've seen from him just in those clips, it's like, this dude's weird. Is he really going to lead this team? I don't see it. I don't see it, but we'll see. I mean, hopefully the Cardinals are drafting 1 and 2 next year with our pick and the Texans pick, and hopefully we're getting Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. now. It's probably not going to go that seamlessly, but that's the goal. Okay, we'll move into some NFC East teams, which is one of the best divisions. I think you got to say this is the best division for sure. Starting with the Cowboys, is this the best roster that they've had? I think overall it is in recent years. They've had more dominant offenses, you can argue. They've had a better offensive line. They've had certain weapons, but I think most well-rounded roster they've had. And just going through it, they have Dak, who I'm not sure if I've really talked about it on here. I'm not the biggest Dak believer, but he's like a fringe top 10 guy, and he can get the job done in the regular season for sure. I'm not going to doubt him in the regular season. So you got Dak, you have Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, who was a very under-the-radar signing, a solid offensive line. On defense, you have Lawrence, Parsons, Gilmore, another signing that's not many people are talking about, or was it a trade? I forget. And then Diggs. They have marquee players at all three levels. I do think this team is going to be good this year, and I don't want to spoil my picks for the divisions and stuff, but I think they're going to succeed. And ultimately, for the Cowboys this season, this is a make or break season. I think I hinted this with Drew in the preseason, and like I said on that video, Drew is a Cowboys fan, so I talk about the Cowboys more than I probably would with him. But this is the make or break season for Dak particularly, but this Cowboys team in general, they got to go far. They have to go to at least the NFC Championship game, in my opinion. Okay, Eagles. This team was the team of the regular season last year. They made it to the championship, the NFL Super Bowl. Runner up, lost to the Chiefs. Great season though overall for the team. One of the best rosters we'd seen in a while. Just everywhere, stacked, loaded, and it's a lot more of the same. Now I do think the Eagles are in for some regression this year. Jalen Hurts, I've never been that high on him. Now clearly he's shown this guy he can play. He definitely can play. But I think he has been supported by the best offensive line in the league, tremendous weapons, good coaching from their offensive coordinator, who's now Steichen. I was forgetting his name. Steichen was seemingly very good for Hurts. But I don't look at him as one of the elite quarterbacks, particularly as a passer. Now, his running gets him close to that level, but I need to see it again. And so I do think Hurts is due for some regression. But when you look at the roster, I mean, it's stacked. And they added Carter, who, if they can manage him correctly, is going to be one of the biggest steals in the last 5 seasons, definitely out of the draft. So I think I mentioned it, but keep an eye out for the fact that they did lose both coordinators. There could be some, adjustment period. They have a really tough schedule too. So I do think ultimately they're still like a top 2 contender to get out of the NFC. I still like this roster. I still like their chances this year, but I don't think they're going to win 13 or 14 games, however many they won last year. Last team I'm going to talk about in this division in depth is the Giants. And a lot of people are down on the G-Men. I still like this team, though. And I've been a guy that's historically been very against Daniel Jones. Last year, he played at a level where I said, okay, this is acceptable. This can get it done. And I really like this team mainly because of how they're coached. Dayball seems to have the winning formula there. They always came ready to play. They're a tough team. I just like what he does there. Kafka as well on offense. Some of the question marks about this team, the receiving core is weak. I do like the addition of Waller. Overall, their offense does hinge on 2 things. I think it's the health of Waller and Saquon and the repeatability factor for Daniel Jones. Can he avoid the turnovers this season like he did last year? Can he just manage the game correctly? And you could say, well, that's probably not a smart thing to bet on, given the injury history of those two guys I mentioned and Daniel Jones' past performance. But I'm going to take a gamble just because I really trust these coaches. I trust that they're going to get this team prepared. I like some of their weapons on defense. Thibodeau could continue to break out. I do like this team, and I think they're going to have a good season, even though a lot of people are kind of calling for regression with them. Okay, Saints. This is another team that I'm high on, and I've recently seen a little bit of people zagging on the Saints. They got Derek Carr this offseason. The division's so bad. I think a lot of people, their initial thought was, hey, okay, this team's probably going to be the favorite in the South. And recently, a lot of people have been saying, I just don't know Carr. I've been a Carr believer for his whole career. I think he's a big change of scenery guy this season. And the biggest thing that leads me to believe that the Saints are going to have success this season is their schedule. They have the easiest schedule in the NFL, from what I could tell. I mean, I think the numbers that people run have borne that out as well. I think their schedule is going to be cake for most of it. They get pretty much as close as you can get to guaranteed wins against the Buccaneers and the Panthers, and I think they're going to have success against the Falcons because, as we'll get into it, I'm not crazy high on the Falcons either. But overall, if healthy, Kamara's out for the first 3 games. If healthy, you have Kamara, Olave, who had a big rookie year and expect more out of him, and Thomas. If Thomas is there, this team is going to be good. Their weapons are going to be too good offensively. That duo of Thomas and Olave is going to be great. And Thomas doesn't even need to be his former self. He just needs to be about 80% of his former self. So, and not to mention they have a really good O-line, and their defense just always ends up showing up. I think Dennis Allen's a good defensive coach. I don't know how much I trust him as a head coach, but I like him as a defensive coach. Overall, I don't see it. I don't see them not having success in the NFC South this year. So, Saints, I'm very high on. Let's go to the team that I think most people are, maybe you could say the Eagles, but most people are calling this team the team to get out of the NFC this year, and I'm with them, the 49ers. I believe this team is just too good everywhere. Coached by Shanahan, who I really like. Now, people have kind of brought up the fact that certain years he hasn't done great with the Niners, even though a lot of the talk around him has how great of a coach he is. He's gotten really unlucky with injuries, really, really unlucky with injuries, but he's brought the team to Super Bowl, Jimmy Garoppolo, and consistently showed up far in the playoffs. I really, really like how this organization's run from the top down, and the roster that Lynch and Shanahan have put together is just tremendous. I mean, you all know it, but let's just run through. You have McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, a good offensive line. They just added Hargrave to that defense. They have Bosa, who I think he'll end up playing, Armstead, Greenlaw, Warner. Their secondary is really the only minor question mark on that defense, and they still have Travarius Ward and the new guy, the new Troy Polamalu, Hufanga. So I love this squad, and health permitting, that's the biggest thing with this team. I can't really bet on health. I can factor it in, but I think they're going to ultimately be okay. Even if Darnold has to get in, he'll probably do fine. This offense is designed to not need a great quarterback, and that's kind of where I get into Purdy, who's the guy that most people talk about when they discuss the Niners. I'm a believer. I am a Brock Purdy believer, even though we got a small sample size last year. He just looks like the perfect quarterback for this offense. He has just enough playmaking, slightly above Garoppolo, you could argue, to potentially elevate the offense a little bit. But he plays, for the most part, I think this season especially, he will play within his means a lot. At certain times he would try to make a big play or kind of go out of structure. I think he'll play within his means, second year in the offense. It's going to be interesting to see how he comes off his UCL injury, but all he needs to really be is healthy and a B-, and this team is going to dominate. So I'm very, very high on the Niners this year, as you'll see later, and you'll see in my predictions video. Let me take a sip of water here. Okay. Detroit Lions. Similar to the Saints in a way, but I think even to a greater extent. This is the team that everybody was falling in love with this offseason. And now as the season gets closer, people that I'm listening to on podcasts are starting to zag on the Lions. And I'm not. I think they have a really good chance to win the division. I love Dan Campbell. Pretty much everyone does. But I think he knows how to get the guys ready to play every Sunday. Goff was kind of a question mark even heading into last year. I've been a Goff fan. He has his limitations. I think that might be borne out in the postseason if the Lions get there. I don't know. I really do like Goff, and he's proven that he can play at a high level when he has weapons, when he's in the right offense. So, in my opinion, he's not a question mark, at least definitely in the regular season. This guy's solid. I think a guy that needs to be an X factor when he comes back is Jameson Williams. I remember Jameson Williams as in the championship game and in the college football playoff in 2020 or whenever it was, 2021 maybe. He was the receiver that everybody was talking about coming out of the draft. And then he had that ACL injury. So I think the talent should still be there. If he can stay on the field and get into a rhythm, I think he can be an X factor. Their defense isn't great, but that linebacker that they drafted, Campbell, hopefully he can, for their sake, can shore up their linebacker core. And then Hutchinson's going to need to carry that line. Their secondary is going to get passed on a lot, but I still think they can put up enough points and just be tough and figure out how to win games with Campbell and running it back for another season that I think they'll be able to have success this year. I'm not part of the people saying, actually, this team's not that good. I do think they're going to be good this year. Last team I'm going to go in depth on are the Seahawks, and I actually think I was too low on them at first. And part of it's just because I can't really get behind Geno. It's hard for me, for a guy that's been a backup his whole career, to come in and have a great year. It's like, what? It's hard for me to believe it. But their roster, in my opinion, is too good to not really repeat what they did last year. Like Purdy, I think Geno just needs to be a B minus, and he was arguably a B plus last year. So if he can repeat that, their ceiling's potentially even higher than I'm giving them right here. But the thing, like I said, their roster's too good. Their weapons on offense are absurd. I mean, Walker, he's a guy that I think people are way too down on. I thought he was tremendous last year in the regular season. When he was on the field, he was lighting it up in a big way. And I think the fact that the Seahawks drafted Charbonnet in the second round made people like all of a sudden start acting like they didn't watch Walker last year. I think Charbonnet and Walker is going to be a great duo. And I'm sure there's some fantasy perspective to this as well, where now both guys are going to be splitting carries. So that's why people that I'm talking to and listening to are maybe down on Walker, that fantasy factor. But I think that running back combination is young, going to be solid. I mean, we're still yet to see what Charbonnet is going to bring, but I think he's going to be good. Receiving core is crazy. I know Smith and Jigba just got hurt, but if he stays healthy throughout the regular season and gets out there, you have DK Metcalf, Lockett, and Jigba. I mean, that's a great stable of weapons around Geno Smith, and that kind of supports the point that I'm making, that he really doesn't need to be great. He just needs to be solid. And then on defense, it's strong. It's getting better. They drafted Witherspoon with the 5th pick, I believe, and they're well coached. Pete Carroll's, I think he's made had a winning record at least 10 out of the last 11 seasons. I mean, this guy's an elite coach. So I was down on the Seahawks, but I'm taking that back. I'm walking that back a little bit. I do think the Seahawks are going to still be good this season. I'll touch on some of the other teams, like I said at the beginning of the video, but I'm going to be quick. Vikings, I still like them. I do think they will regress this year because you just can't replicate that success they had in close games. They were 11-0 in one-score games last year. You can't replicate that. But I like Cousins. I do think they're going to miss Cook. I don't know what people are talking about, acting like just because he's 28, he's not a good player anymore. They're going to miss Cook, in my opinion. I do like Madison, but I don't know. I'm not sure on him. But they have Jefferson. Obviously, a lot of people are going to call him the best receiver in the league, and I think I would agree with that. Addison should be stepping in. Hawkinson. I like McConnell as a coach. Defensively, they have some holes on their team for sure, but I think they're still going to be good this year. Packers. When I originally talked about the Packers, I had them struggling and not doing well, mainly because you just don't know with Love, and you maybe have a hangover from losing, moving on from that former regime with Rodgers. But then I look at their roster and I like their coach. I think he's good. I'm blanking on his name right now, but after more thought, they could be the team that I'm most wrong on this year, and you'll see it in my predictions. I think I probably cheated them out of a win or two this year. We'll see. We'll see how it's a big question mark. LaFleur, that's their coach. Now I remember. I like what he does with this team. I think he could be even better without Rodgers because I don't know if they had the best relationship. They have still a very good roster. They don't have many pieces missing from that NFC Championship game roster. or whatever it was, divisional against the Bucks. But I think it was the NFC Championship game. But regardless, they have weapons on offense. Receivers pretty weak, and that was a big theme last year. I do like Christian Watson. I like Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon. They got this new tight end that they're high on. Good line, strong defense. I mean, Alexander's a headliner there, but I just think it all is going to come down to love, really. But if he's a good quarterback, which we really have no answer on, they could actually sneak into a playoff spot, or they could even threaten for the division. But I'm just going to stick where I originally was and kind of say they might struggle this year. But like I said, this could be the team I'm most wrong on. Bears, I don't like that roster. I'm not sold on Fields as a passer. I do not understand the hype. People aren't calling them Super Bowl contenders, but people are giving them quite a few wins in their predictions, and I don't agree with that. Rams, I originally put them in the playoffs when I did my initial predictions a few weeks ago. That was very dumb. Partly why I did that is because I'm so high on Stafford when he plays, and Kupp. I trust McVay to just figure things out, but their roster is so bad, and their best players. Now I know I said you can't bet on injuries, but their best players are injury risks. Stafford is really banged up, and he's taken a lot of damage over his career. Kupp is already dealing with a hamstring injury. Donald thought about retiring, so I don't see this team figuring it out. They got great players. And there's a world where McVay just coaches his team up to 8 or 9 wins, but I don't think they're really a contender for any playoff spot this year. A couple teams left. Falcons, I don't see it. They're a team that's very hyped up this offseason, and they have a good roster for a good reason. They have a good line. They bolstered up the defense. They drafted Bijan Robinson, and Arthur Smith is. I do like their style of play. I like their winning formula, and Bijan Robinson is exactly what a guy like Arthur Smith wants. But I just don't see it with Ritter. I do not see him being the guy there. I kind of alluded to that with my Kyler Murray takeaway. If he was on this team, okay, there we go. I could see them actually winning the division, threatening the Saints. I just don't really see it with this team. I think things are going to go wrong if Ritter's a quarterback. Now, maybe Heineke comes in and they just run the ball down teams' throats, and all of a sudden, hey, they have 9 wins and the Saints underperform. So there's a path for the Falcons to be good this year, but I don't see it. Commanders, I just don't trust Howell. Kind of like Ritter. They just need a quarterback. I like their defensive line. I like their offensive weapons, McLaurin and Dotson and Curtis Samuel, and I like the duo of Robinson and Gibson, but I don't like Rivera as a coach, and I'm not sold on Howell. I mean, he had a good couple preseason games, but I just don't know with him. And then to wrap it up, Bucks and Panthers, I think they're both going to be really bad. I think the Panthers could be a mess offensively this year, and the Bucks, they have a lot of remnants of that championship team, but Baker and Trask, it's not going to happen in my opinion. So that's it for my NFC preview. As I've been saying multiple times throughout this video, I'm going to do an actual predictions video, so I don't want to say who like I said, I definitely hinted at who I think is going to do well, but I'll give my actual team records, division winners, all that kind of stuff, and predictions for award winners in the NFL, playoffs, all that kind of stuff in a separate video this week. I will let you know because we said it on the AFC prediction video. We both picked the Chiefs to get out of the AFC. I will tell you that has changed for me, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to go with a little different path this year. And in the NFC, I will give my prediction here, and you'll hear about it more in that video that I'm going to be making. I have the Niners getting out of the NFC. I think they're just, I'm going to keep hammering home the point. If they're healthy, they are too good to not make the Super Bowl, in my opinion. So we'll see. NFC, I was very down on it in the offseason. I'm getting more excited. It's going to be interesting. I think there's really only 3 legit contenders right now, and calling the Cowboys a legit contender to get out of the NFC is, there's not much historical evidence to back that statement, but I do like this team a lot. So I think the Cowboys, Eagles, Niners are the 3 real contenders, and then there's a few pretenders / contenders. We'll figure it out in the season. In the Lions, really, and Saints, maybe. There's not much. So there's those top 3, but I think it'll still be interesting. So let me know what you guys think about the NFC this year. Any of my takes that you agreed or disagreed with, I'd love to hear them, your opinions about them in the comments below. And like I said, video going to come out on Wednesday. Football starts on Thursday. I'm super pumped. So I'm going to have a lot of content surrounding the NFL season. And even though the Cardinals are going to be historically bad potentially this season, still going to be a lot to watch and a lot to talk about. So that's going to be it for me. And have a good one. Peace.